Have you ever stopped to think that adultery can leave scars that go far beyond momentary heartbreak? What if I told you that infidelity isn't just an emotional wound, but a deep gash in the soul, capable of carrying scars for centuries, crossing lives and incarnations? Sounds unbelievable, right? But what you're about to discover will turn your view of betrayal upside down. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to access more stories like this. Imagine for a moment that those decisions we make in a moment of impulsivity, weakness, or confusion don't simply disappear with the passage of time. That these choices create an invisible web that can trap your soul, hindering the free development of your being. That the impacts are not just on you, but reverberate in those you love, and perhaps even in the next cycles of their lives. If you want to deeply understand this mystery, which goes beyond psychology and sociology and connects with the spiritual world, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. Because what comes next isn't just common content about relationships, it's a revelation that can change how you live, love, and forgive. Stay with me until the end of this video, as I'll reveal true stories, shocking cases documented by the legendary Edgar Cayce, and a practical path to spiritual healing for these invisible wounds that infidelity can cause. A journey of self-discovery and transformation that begins with a simple question: are you ready to face the truth behind adultery? To understand this deep and little-known perspective on adultery, we need to know the figure who will guide us on this journey. Edgar Cayce. Have you ever heard of him? Maybe not. But I can guarantee that his teachings have forever changed how we understand the human being, the spirit, and the power of the soul. Edgar Cayce was one of the most influential psychics of the 20th century. Known as the sleeping prophet, he entered trance states to answer questions about health, spirituality, and even past lives. Everything recorded in over 14,000 documented readings. These readings weren't mere predictions or empty mysticism. They were profound guidance that is now studied in universities and by experts worldwide. Why do his visions still have such an impact today? Because Cayce broke with the traditional, limited view of relationships. He didn't see adultery just as a human error to be judged morally or emotionally, but as something with invisible spiritual consequences. According to him, betrayals leave soul scars that shape emotional challenges and repeated patterns across multiple lives. And how is this different from the traditional relationship advice you've heard until now? Most approaches focus only on the present, on immediate pain, current infidelity, momentary forgiveness, or breakups. Cayce goes much further, showing that these wounds generate karmic debts that are only resolved through real spiritual work. That's why infidelity is a serious matter that needs to be understood in multiple dimensions: physical, emotional, and spiritual. Now, dive with me into a concept that many find hard to accept, but which reveals a much greater dimension of the human experience. The fact that adultery leaves marks that cannot be seen with the naked eye, but are felt by the soul. When we talk about physical, emotional, or psychological wounds, we're referring to superficial layers of being. But what Cayce reveals is that marital betrayal causes something he calls soul scars. These are spiritual wounds that hang in our vital energy like invisible knots, preventing the soul from fully developing. These spiritual scars aren't just simple marks. They create karmic debts, which are like accumulated debits to be paid in other lives. Imagine yourself stuck in a cycle of repetitions where old pains and betrayals continue to affect your relationships, even when you're unaware of it. It's like carrying invisible baggage that influences your behavior and emotions, creating patterns that are hard to break. And these consequences go beyond the current partner, as the karmic balance can affect your spiritual evolution for several incarnations, creating repeated situations like karmic love triangles or relationships marked by distrust and suffering. That's why infidelity isn't an isolated episode. It's a complex plot that involves the entire soul on its journey. This mysterious dimension prepares us for the true stories I'm about to tell, documented cases from Cayce's readings that shock and move, showing how these spiritual scars manifest in practice. It's this invisible depth that many ignore, but that determines almost everything we experience in relationships. Let's now give these concepts a face and a life. Imagine a man who, after several turbulent relationships, can't understand why his relationships always end in betrayal, either as the betrayer or the betrayed. According to Cayce's readings, he was stuck in a karmic pattern from previous lives, where numerous adulteries had left deep marks on his soul. In one session, Edgar Cayce described the situation of a woman who repeatedly found herself in love triangles, immersed in complicated relationships that seemed like endless suffering. She felt that something deeper was behind the pain, and Cayce revealed that her soul carried energetic cords tied to these old betrayals, as if she was being pulled to repeat the same karmic spiritual dynamic. Another emblematic case is that of a couple who, even after mutual forgiveness, always found themselves in seemingly inexplicable crises. Cayce explained that infidelity had left a spiritual congestion, a stagnation of the soul's evolution, that could only be dissolved with conscious practices of purification and spiritual reparation. These documented real stories have dates, names, and impressive details that are moving not only for the pain revealed, but for the possibility of transforming that pain into learning. They show us that not everything is lost after a betrayal. However, healing requires more than words. It requires a deep dive into self-knowledge and spirituality. Now, let's enter a dimension that most people are unaware of: the spiritual mechanics hidden behind adultery. If until now you've been impressed by the idea of soul scars and karmic debts, get ready for something even more fascinating and complex. Imagine your soul as a vast energy system, like a network of luminous fibers that connect your body, mind, and spirit. Every relationship we have creates invisible ties, called energetic cords by Edgar Cayce. These cords are subtle threads that form from affections, desires, and intentions in human connections. When there's true fidelity, and here we're talking about fidelity not only physical but also emotional and spiritual, these cords function as channels of pure, vitalizing energy. They nourish and strengthen the being, promoting growth and harmony. However, adultery acts like an invisible and devastating knot that forms in these cords. Think of a tight, ugly knot in a thread that should be clean and smooth. This knot prevents the natural flow of energy and creates a kind of blockage, which Cayce calls spiritual congestion. Instead of circulating freely, vital energy begins to accumulate at specific points, causing internal pains, anxieties, and a continuous feeling of stagnation. This congestion isn't just a poetic metaphor. It manifests as a true stagnation of spiritual development, because the energetic knot created by betrayal serves as an anchor that traps the soul in repetitive patterns. It's as if, for as long as this knot is there, your soul is limited from evolving in other areas of life. And you know what's even more complex? These energetic cords don't easily unravel. They are sustained not only by guilt and anger, but also by silence and denial. When there's no sincere forgiveness, when there's no recognition of one's own responsibility, the knot solidifies more and more in the person's energetic structure, trapping them. Imagine also that, in addition to these knots, there's a spiritual domino effect. When a betrayal happens, it not only compromises your energy, but impacts the energy of the betrayed partner, who can develop equally deep wounds, even without understanding where that feeling of emptiness, of chronic insecurity, comes from. That's why it's so difficult to break cycles of infidelity. It's as if the knot is passed from soul to soul, generation after generation, through karmic patterns that demand awareness and effort to be undone. This process creates a scenario in which infidelity isn't just a moment of weakness, but a spiritual phenomenon with real consequences that material science still doesn't fully understand. Have you ever felt, in a relationship, that the pain was much greater than the fact itself? That's this spiritual congestion speaking through emotions. Later, I'll show you how it's possible to start undoing these knots and cleaning the energetic cords, allowing your soul to flourish again. But first, we need to understand how all this connects, not only to the present time, but extends through the multiple lives your soul travels. If you thought the pain of infidelity was confined to this incarnation, prepare for a revelation that will challenge your deepest beliefs. Edgar Cayce, in his readings, offers us a fascinating and unsettling panorama. Patterns of adultery, betrayal, and emotional wounds are often not just problems of the now, they are stories that the soul carries through multiple lives. Imagine this. You might be living the consequences of decisions made in other eras, in other bodies, in realities completely different from the current one, right now. It's as if each incarnation is a chapter of a great story, and karmic debts are the themes that repeat, waiting to be understood and re-signified. Cayce describes cases where people struggling with the same love problems, cycles of betrayal, or emotional emptiness, even if they act with the best intentions, are experiencing an old pattern. These souls are trapped in invisible ties, often configuring karmic love triangles that perpetuate over time. In one of his readings, Cayce described a soul that had lived countless cycles, oscillating between the role of betrayer and betrayed in a spiritual game that still sought balance. The confusion, suffering, and repetition seemed endless until a conscious process of self-knowledge was initiated to break this cycle. These love triangles, so common in our culture, are not mere coincidence. From Cayce's perspective, they are reflections of soul contracts, connections chosen so that the parties can evolve together, even through conflict. The problem? Most people are not aware of these contracts and therefore experience suffering without understanding the purpose or the way out. With the gradual escalation of this learning, a pattern that seemed simple infidelity reveals itself to be a complex network of karmic and spiritual influences that require detailed attention and healing. The bad news is that ignoring this learning means staying trapped in these cycles, receiving the same ghosts and pains in relationships again. But the good news? Spiritual evolution allows these contracts to be re-signified. It's possible, with conscious attitudes, to break these ties and change the soul's script for journeys of authentic love and emotional freedom. And this journey doesn't have to be solitary. It's where a deep meaning is built, a connection with something greater that transcends the physical dimension. Recognizing that these dramas of broken relationships are much more complex than they seem is the first step towards awakening. Now that we understand the magnitude of these karmic consequences, the question remains, how can we walk back towards healing? That's exactly what we'll address next. If you feel stuck in a cycle of suffering caused by infidelity, whether as the betrayer or the betrayed, know that there is a genuine path to healing that goes far beyond empty words or superficial promises. Edgar Cayce himself indicated a clear set of spiritual practices and conscious attitudes that allow for the cleansing of soul scars and the healing of karmic debts. First step, sincere confession. Don't just think about confessing a mistake to someone here. What Cayce proposes is a deep internal acknowledgement, a brutal honesty with oneself and with spirituality. Confession is shedding light on the internal shadows that maintain these energetic knots. Without this transparency, the wounds remain hidden, continuing to feed the cycle of invisible suffering. Next, the practice of temporary celibacy gains prominence. For many, it may seem radical, but Cayce recommended this period of abstinence not as punishment, but as a time of purification for the body, mind, and spirit. This detachment from physical contact helps the soul reorganize its energies, allowing the congestion to begin to be released. Furthermore, altruistic service appears as another valuable tool. Helping others, engaging in generous and selfless actions, raises the person's energetic frequency, reducing the weight of karma generated by infidelity. It's a practical way to reclaim responsibility for your spiritual journey, giving back to the world what was unbalanced. And a fundamental component is meditative and prayer practices. Meditating, seeking connection with your ancestral essence, and asking for help from higher wisdom are indispensable steps to dissolve toxic energetic ties. Cayce emphasized that the mind and spirit, aligned in a state of serenity, have the ability to heal and regenerate the wounded energetic field. But most importantly, it's not enough just to feel regret or remorse. The difference is in acting. Taking the reins of your healing process, applying these guidelines to your daily routine, and maintaining commitment to yourself and to the evolution of the soul. This path also requires patience, as the effects of spiritual cleansing are not immediate. They manifest gradually, in subtle ways. Perhaps we'll notice a decrease in repetitive patterns in our relationships, an increase in inner peace, or even greater clarity in our life's purpose. Remember, these practices are not rigid dogmas, but powerful tools that, when incorporated with faith and discipline, transform lives. They represent the bridge between the pain caused by adultery and the real chance to transform that pain into a source of growth and evolution. Have you ever stopped to think that the biggest emotional crises, those that seem to devastate everything around, can be powerful portals for spiritual transformation? When we talk about the impact of infidelity, we're not just considering fleeting pain or a conflict to be overcome. We're facing a unique opportunity for the soul to evolve and redeem itself. Within Edgar Cayce's readings, we find several accounts of people who went through the worst betrayals, but who, by understanding their true spiritual nature, managed to make a quantum leap in their inner journey. And you know what's even more surprising? Those who once were protagonists of suffering, when consciously aligning with evolution, become immune to the karmic pains of infidelity, meaning they learn not to repeat these patterns anymore. Imagine the pain of betrayal as an open wound that, if not properly treated, corrodes and intoxicates. On the other hand, if you look at it with attentive eyes and an open heart, it can transform into a source of wisdom. People who adopted this posture report a new sensitivity to love, a deeper understanding of themselves, and genuine forgiveness not only of others, but especially of themselves. I'm sure you know someone who came out stronger after a crisis, that friend who seemed to be falling apart and today is an inspiration to those around them. This doesn't happen by chance. It's the fruit of inner work of rescue and reconstruction. This process is totally possible for each of us. We just need to decide to embark on this journey without running away from the pains that infidelity can bring. Instead of trying to erase the wound with time or distractions, we need to face it head on. And that, of course, requires courage. But the reward is immense. By transforming pain into evolution, you free yourself from karmic cycles, raise your energetic vibration, and start attracting more true and healthy relationships. It's as if, from that moment on, your soul knows it has learned a valuable lesson and begins to walk on lighter paths. This view doesn't minimize the pain, on the contrary, it recognizes its fundamental importance. In fact, the path of the spiritual master almost always involves deep crises. The difference is in how we respond to these crises, with denial and revolt, or with acceptance and growth. Therefore, if you live or have lived the pain of infidelity, know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, a portal that opens to the possibility of healing that transcends time and dimensions, and you can be the protagonist of this transformation. Now I invite you to pause, take a deep breath, and ask a simple yet profound question. What wounds are my current relationships trying to show me? This is a question you may never have asked before, but it could be the beginning of your true emotional and spiritual revolution. Allow yourself to reflect on your relationship patterns. Do they repeat? Do they hurt? Do they leave a bitter taste that seems to persist indefinitely? I'd really like to hear from you, seriously. In the comments below, share if you've had a similar experience, or even if you recognize that a relationship is showing you something bigger, an unfinished lesson, an old wound. Your stories can help other people who feel alone on this journey. And here's a challenge for you. Reflect if any difficult relationship you've experienced has ever seemed to transcend this life, if it seems to have roots beyond the present time. Can you perceive if there's a repetition of scenarios, the feeling of emotional déjà vu, or even an invisible karmic pattern? Interact with us, because your participation strengthens this community of seekers who want to understand the deep meaning of human relationships and take a step beyond the obvious. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next content, which will delve even deeper into the topic and bring practices for you to start your own soul healing today. Remember, the process of spiritual evolution is, above all, a path of listening to your soul, your feelings, and the hidden messages in the experiences you live. Throughout this video, you've gained access to a vision that few have the opportunity to know. How infidelity, beyond immediate pain, can leave deep marks on the soul and influence not only one life, but several existences. But I want to leave you with a message of hope and transformative mission. What may seem like a deep wound today, a pain difficult to carry, can become in the future your greatest spiritual gift. Think with me. The soul evolves through experiences, learns from mistakes, and by recognizing its shadows, expands its light. Adultery and its consequences, no matter how difficult they are, can become an opportunity for us to build more conscious relationships based on true love, responsibility, and real forgiveness. Our collective journey is not just about avoiding mistakes, but about transforming what seems heavy into lightness, what seems like an end into a new beginning. It is in this greater purpose that the real possibility of a world where spirituality and love walk side by side, guiding our choices with wisdom, is born. And you, who are here now seeking to understand your soul and its cycles, are a fundamental part of this change. Value this quest, because in this movement lies the key to freeing not only yourself, but all your relationships from the shackles of the past. Thank you for dedicating your time to be with us in this profound reflection. We are a community united by the pursuit of self-knowledge and true transformation. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to access more stories like this. Don't let this light go out. Keep exploring, learning, and evolving. See you in the next video, where we'll continue to unravel the mysteries of the soul and walk together towards a more fulfilling and conscious life.